Rewriting validation code seemed to be the normal when tech stacks differed. In today's video, we'll build an Angular form in Sjs Controller to share the validation of a model, keeping it dry, within an Nx Monorepository. If you've suffered from the same duplication efforts of validating your front-end and back-end models in one place, leave me a comment below, or let me know about the tooling or strategies you've implemented to resolve this problem. Following along in this video will require you to download the Nx Monorepo Starter that you can find in the Gumroad link in the description. Make sure to download a copy while it's still free. First, open up a terminal and run nx workspace-generator domain, and this will prompt us for a couple of inputs, with the first input being our project name and the second one being our domain name. This will generate all the files that are necessary for these projects. So if we open up the apps and then our domain of BEO, we can see that we have a number of projects in here. The first one being the member API. That'll be a roll-up of our Nest application features. The member app, which will be an Angular application, which will have all of our features associated within a shell application here. And then we have a BEO API member feature app. This will contain all of our controllers specific to this feature. And then we have a common library for this domain. This will contain all of our models and validators. We have a UI data access library, which will contain all of our data access services to our REST services. And then we have a member feature, which will contain our form component. Quickly creating a form to enter profile information for the user, the material form generator makes our lives easier. It defines the project where the form will live, the name of the form, and inputs. And then when we run the generator here, it will prompt us for this information. So we'll name the form profile. Project name will be BEO, UI, member, feature. These can be found in the angular.json. And the controls we're going to add will be the first name, and then separated by T, which means that this is for a text box, and this will be comment delimited. Say last name, and then we'll add in an email. And these will all be text boxes. There is a certain format which those will follow, and you can find those in the documentation. Exploring the profile form component, a profile form property is created which is of type modeled form group. The model form group takes in a generic of the profile model, which helps us map the keys of the profile model to a specific form control. This also takes in a profile validator, which helps us validate the profile model, and this will be shared between this form group and the Nest controller. Hopping over to the profile validator, the validate method uses the properties of the profile model and defines the validations for each of the properties, each property defining an array of validator functions. The email property requires a certain text format, so an email validator is added to the array of validations. Sharing the validation with the NestJs controller, I created a profile controller under the BEO API member feature library. We'll add a create method that posts a profile model in the body of the request with a post and use interceptor decorator. The validator interceptor factory allows the sharing of validations. It intercepts the request before the create method executes and defines the profile validator, validating the profile model. If the profile model is invalid, the user is returned a bad request exception with the validation errors in the body of the response. Make sure to add the profile controller to the BEO API member feature module. After that's completed, run NgServe-io member API. Using Postman after the project is up and running, a few test requests demonstrate the interceptor using the shared validator. A request to the profile with no request bodies made. This returns all validation errors with the profile model's keys where a validation error exists. In the second request, The first name and last name are sent as part of the model. The response returns an email key with validations. The final request has a valid model and returns the requested model as the response. Moving over to the client side, I needed to configure a few things for routing. First, routes were added to navigate to the profile form component. Second, the router module was added as an import to the BEO UI member feature module. In the BEO member app, the Nx welcome component markup needed a replacement with a router outlet so the form can show. In the app module, the default routes are configured to navigate to our form component using a lazy loaded route to the feature library and importing the router module. Finally, we'll run our client-side app by using the NgServe-io member app command. As our application is up and running, you can see that our first name, last name, and email form controls exist here. As we start typing through, we can see that the validations start adding and that the validations are used from the profile validator we created earlier. The Nx Starter monorepo allowed us to generate code quickly through the use of workspace generators. The generators created a Nest and Angular application with the supporting feature libraries, and it allowed us to have quick form generation that provided us our model and validator. In this instance, we shared the profile validator between our Angular form and our Nest interceptor to provide consistency, keeping our validations dry. Save your developers time with the same scaffolding and components found here by going to the Gumroad link in the description and find the Nx Monorepo Starter.